My fellow Georgians, as Minority Leader for the Georgia House of Representatives, I am honored to offer the Democratic response to the Governor's State of the State address this morning. Frankly, one word comes to mind: frustrated. I come to you today frustrated by the lack of progress we've made as a state. I lay that frustration at the Governor's feet. This morning, after we heard from the Governor at our Capitol building, I kept thinking to myself, how does he get away with this? All I heard today was political propaganda. These are just shiny political moves to placate Georgians who are fed up and tired of poor health care outcomes, skyrocketing rents and mortgages, the maternal mortality crisis, senseless gun violence, abortion bans. What is so frustrating is that we have the means to fix the problems we face, to invest in Georgia's families, small businesses, healthcare facilities, schools, mental health resources, and so much more. But we've yet to see the level of investment required to ensure all Georgians can thrive. When I stood before you a couple of years ago, we had a $6.6 billion surplus. Today, our budget surplus is $10 billion higher, $16 billion. Let me repeat that again. Instead of investing in Georgia's hard-earned tax dollars into solving the problems we face, the governor is currently sitting on a $16 billion surplus. You heard me right, billion with a B. We have seen one of Georgia's only level 1 trauma centers shutter. We saw our maternity mortality rate rise in the wake of this reckless decision to nearly totally ban abortions, and we continue to underfund our schools. His big empty plans are covering just this abject negligence. It sounds nice, but they do nothing to address the root causes of the challenges many Georgians face. Healthcare. When I think of challenges that this state faces, the first thing that comes to mind is access to healthcare. We live in a state with one of the highest numbers of uninsured people in the nation. Simply put, the Pathways to Coverage program is a parkway to failure. It's just smoke and mirrors. Instead of expanding Medicaid and covering the hundreds of thousands of Georgians living in the Medicaid gap, the governor is opting to invest in this costly and inefficient state-based health care plan. Each year that Governor Kemp passes up on Medicaid expansion, we lose out on $3 billion. The people of Georgia are being scammed. We're being ripped off, and we're being served the bill for it. Have y'all been keeping up? Under the current governor, thousands of Georgia children were kicked off of their health insurance plan last year. This past year, over 100,000 Georgia kids lost access to their doctor. Georgia was number 3 in the nation for the number of children dropped from Medicaid. This is shameful. And the state agencies responsible for carrying out the unwinding say that children's health insurance was terminated for, quote, personal procedural reasons. Procedural reasons? Does that work for you? Well, it doesn't work for me. This Pathways program, the governor vowed to enroll as many as 100,000 Georgians. As of a month ago, Georgia's Department of Community Health has revealed that it has only enrolled roughly 2,000 Georgians. That is only 1% of the 100,000 Georgians Kemp estimated it would enroll in the first year of enrollment. Tax dollars are being squandered. This program is an outright failure. Hardworking Georgia families, instead of being connected with life-saving preventative health care services, are being tied up in paperwork and being asked to jump through hoop after hoop to gain care. The people of Georgia are getting crumbs and being asked to say thank you for it. And it doesn't work for Georgians all across our state. Kemp and Republican politicians are doing absolutely nothing to restore this lost coverage. They are content to ignore the solution on the table. Fully expanding Medicaid can ensure Georgia's young people can count on access to their doctor. Listen, I heard an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Expand Medicaid now. Right now, the funding is on the table to expand health care to 500,000 Georgians. It's been there for years. Unless the governor acts to expand Medicaid, Georgia will once again decline $3 billion of federal funding. Let me pause and say that one more time. If we fail to expand Medicaid again this year, Georgia will once again decline $3 billion of federal funding. Just sitting there, this is an outright neglect of the people of our great state. We will not stand for it. Dignity of work. Not to mention this week, Kemp announced he wants to make it harder for working Georgians to gain protections they need at work. In a right-to-work state like Georgia, we have seen how workers' rights fall by the wayside. Kemp has made it a priority to cheapen and weaken protections for the dignity of work. Many Georgians work more than 40 hours a week and still don't earn a living wage. Georgia is attracting new employers every year, and I'm proud of the Georgia Democratic Caucus's work to keep Georgia the #1 state to do business, which, by the way, this week slid to #4, failed policies. But what I don't understand is why we must uphold with this economic prosperity from the workers actually putting in the work. We all benefit when we protect Georgia's workers. The governor mentioned that the example of Nehemiah today in his address. The book of Nehemiah also tells us to stand in the gap on behalf of the people. This governor and his Republican allies are selling out Georgia families. We're asking you to stand in the gap. Education. For years, Georgia's education system has failed students. I think current leadership is ready for its report card. Adequate funding for our schools, F. Support our teachers, F. Tuition costs, F. Republicans have cut over $1 billion in public education funding over the last 10 years. Kemp talks a big game about supporting teachers. Some may have seen the news that he was giving out a year-end one-time retention bonus. But what does that do when you are actively working to defund public schools in every corner of the state? Kemp is waving around a one-time retention payment while his Republican allies are plotting a way once again to push a voucher scam through this chamber. A voucher scam that would take even more money away from the public schools that need it most. This is deceptive. It is not the way we do things here in Georgia. If the governor really cared about our students, our teachers, our hardworking Georgia families, he would invest in our public schools. From Macon to Madison, from Statesboro to Stewart County, we must invest in our public schools. Instead of Kemp's smoke and mirrors approach, pay raises to distract from his plan to defund our schools. We, Democrats, are advocating for teacher pay raises. More than that, we must revamp our quality basic education formula to finally adequately fund public education and get teachers the support they deserve. While Republican politicians in the House and the Senate squabble over banning books and censoring teachers, Democrats will keep pushing to ensure Georgia students can gain an excellent education in every corner of the state. We will continue to introduce and champion bills that expand educational opportunities for all Georgia students, regardless of race, income, or zip code. Along those lines, we have to talk about gun control. Teachers in Georgia should be able to adequately get a raise while adding to their job position a long list of responsibilities of gun safety and gun protection. Republican politicians want to ask teachers to not only teach, but to act as security personnel for your children's classrooms. To help our teachers, we must do something about keeping guns out of our children's schools. Regardless of political affiliation, we should all come together to do something to keep guns out of the wrong hands. Democrats are setting an ambitious agenda to push for universal background checks, red flag laws, and safe storage measures this session. These are common sense gun control measures that have wide approval whether you own a gun or not. At the end of the day, this is about keeping our kids and our communities safe. This is the Democrats' goal, in our agenda heading into the 2024 session. Maternal mortality, another issue Democrats are pushing to solve, and this maternal mortality crisis that is harming women in the state of Georgia and disproportionately affecting women of color, specifically Black women. In 2024, with the standard of care that is available to us, there should be no reason for women to die during childbirth. It's unconscionable. And Kemp's plan to extend access to Medicaid to a woman a year after they give birth won't cut it. All women in Georgia need access to reliable, adequate health care all 365 days of the year. The maternal mortality crisis continues to worsen here in Georgia, not because of a lack of political imagination, but because of a lack of political will. The treatments required to prevent maternal death are inexpensive. This care for Georgian mothers is not just a priority for the governor and Republicans in leadership. Ending this maternal mortality crisis is incredibly important to the Democrats in this chamber. We will continue to champion legislation that will invest in protecting health care for moms in Georgia. Reproductive freedom is something we cannot bypass. I, for one, believe that a woman has the right to choose when, where, and with whom to have a baby. Women should be able to make their own health care decisions. After Roe was overturned, Georgia women have been subjected to a near total abortion ban. I've heard unbelievably harrowing stories of women who are not given proper care because of these political games. Republicans believe they should make women's health care decisions. We believe women can make those decisions themselves. Make no mistake, Democrats will stop at nothing to restore reproductive freedom. Time and time again, the governor shows us who he really is. Today's State of the State put on display Kemp's willingness to neglect the people of Georgia. We don't have time to continue to put politics ahead of actual needs of Georgia families. We will not be distracted or deterred. You can count on us, our caucus in the House and in the Senate, to go full steam ahead, fighting to lower costs for Georgia families, investing in our state's public schools, keeping our communities safe, and restoring a woman's right to her own body autonomy. It is my pleasure to honor and serve. Thank you. God bless our great state of Georgia.